Reluctant Enemies then, part of the Operational Combat series by the Gamers, published by MMP, halfway point of turn 13, which means I've just done the Commonwealth. Vichy still to go, have their segment of the turn. I had a few, and I don't know if I'm really going to discuss the situation much. I guess I can run through it quickly. Still deadlocked here at this river. Despite these two stacks of Vichy units on the far side of this river line being DG'd, the Vichy counted their factors there, 30, halved across the river, 15, looked at the fact they were facing 3 units and probably can't even get, well, maybe just scrape 2 to 1 odds, maybe 1 to 1, 2 to 1, even against DG'd stuff. It's going to be a real tough nut to crack that. So they may just have to hope for a lucky artillery strike or something to get the odds better in their favour, or maybe run the gauntlet of the fighter cover and get some air power in there. Not quite sure how we're going to break this river line yet. In this area, stalemate. Although the Commonwealth have just taken a second under that 643 with the blue stripe as a village, which is worth a VP. So the Commonwealth now have 3 victory points, I think. 1 up there and 2 in this area. None over in the Damascus area, although the Free French have now made their way up into these hills, which is a lot safer from being overrun by the armour, because it's not doubled anymore, so this armour is nowhere near as scary. It has some protection from fighters, and they've built an airbase which, although the planes are on the right there, it's actually under this French 80 HQ. So they have fighter cover for their troops in that area as well, which is good news. And they are at least testing the defences of Damascus now in some way, shape or form. In this area, 5 Commonwealth and a Czech battalion went into these hills just south of that place there, Sassar, with 8 to 1 odds and a +1 on the action ratings. Managed to roll a 2 for surprise, have 6 columns against them, and a 4 on the combat roll, and took 2 losses. Had to withdraw in and lick their wounds and come back again. And the second time round, with 3 battalions, they've defeated the unit in their way at the cost of just a retreat. So now this road has opened up, but the Vichy have had plenty of time to put some more troops in the way. So that's the state of play for the Commonwealth as we head into the Vichy turn in turn 13. And I really don't think the Vichy have got too much to do here. It should be quite quick. So the only other things to mention really are, I was worried that I was doing the casualties wrong. I suddenly had this horrible sinking feeling that where the chart said you had to take 1 casualty, you know, say on the combat table, let's dig it out here. So let's say, you know, you can see in there, so say it said attacker option 1, defender loss 1, option 1. I was suddenly thinking, well, is that loss 1? Each of these units is half a step, isn't it? So shouldn't everyone have been losing 2 units? And how has that unbalanced the game? Because sometimes you're only attacking a single unit, but sometimes you're attacking a big stack. And anyway, I needn't have worried, because Reluctant Enemies says every combat unit counts as a step loss for the purposes of combat. So fine, great. You can do it as I've been doing it. I've been playing it entirely correctly. What I hadn't been doing correctly though was where you take casualties. This game allows you to rebuild 1 in every 3 losses. So for every 3 losses you take, you get a sort of random roll against them, and you can put 1 back on. So you can see I've got this 3 steps column for stuff where you've taken sort of impermanent losses, and you're going to roll to see what comes back. And then you've got the permanently killed pile. Once you've made that roll, the rest of the units get shoveled in here. So I'd only been giving those, I'd been counting each unit as a sort of half a step, so I'd only been giving both sides half the reinforcements they were due. I don't think it's had a great impact on the game, but here in turn 13 both sides have had a bit of a Christmas present because I've given them a couple of extra rolls that they were due on the reinforcements. So the Vichy just got another 3 units re-arrive and the Commonwealth just had another 2 arrive. So the sides have just been strengthened slightly. Probably favours the Vichy a little bit, that, but I don't think they rolled as good a units as the Commonwealth. So I think it's pretty much preserved the status quo and we're back where we should be. Start of turn 15 here in Reluctant Enemies, and really not a lot happening over the last turn and a half, 2 turns. Things have kind of stalled out and stalemated here. Neither side, the Vichy have no reason to want to attack across that river. It would be ludicrous, and the Commonwealth are trying to build up sufficient strength, but even when they had these stacks on the far side of the river DG'd, they didn't feel confident. They have brought up pretty much as much force into there as they can possibly get. I think there's 4 units in each of those stacks. And that's about as strong as they can get, so maybe they have to launch an attack, but really they'd prefer their artillery to do a job and you know, destroy a unit, DG the rest, and then perhaps go in. But struggling to make a breakthrough there. Similarly here, they've stalled out. They've taken their 2 victory point locations here, but they've really got no hope of pressing through these forces now in this horrible rugged terrain. 1-to-1 attacks, even if they could muster a 2-to-1 attack. In very close terrain, it's just awful. That's if I check the tables, very close 2-to-1 is like attacking at 1-to-2 odds in the open. So I mean, it's just hideous. They're not going to make any ground there. So the one theatre where they still perhaps have attacking opportunities, assuming that they don't get, you know, big artillery strikes, they'll have to start throwing all their air power in soon and subjecting it to any fighter cover and trying to use their fighters to screen and so on. But, you know, stuff like that will have to happen eventually. But they still have options to attack over here. All this French force has moved up, and there's 5 or 6 infantry battalions under here, and a cavalry battalion, and an armoured battalion, armoured battalion, ready to go in here and try and wreak some havoc. So that's the attack they still have to try. The trouble with that is getting a supply over into this area is proving tricky. They have a couple of points kicking around, but they'll need more to sustain this lot attacking, moving and attacking. So the question is, how long do they wait to build up that supply stash, or do they just go and do everything they can to get supply into the area? I mean, they can rail in a point because they've got a rail cap of 1, so they can rail in a point of supply, but I wonder where the supply dump is. There's a point. Okay, so they've got 3. Basically 3 supply points in here. That'll probably fund the attack for a couple of turns, perhaps. They did have some supply down here as well. Oh, they got 3T down there, so they've got nearly 4. So actually they probably can afford just to go and try and keep topping up and see whether they get anywhere. But the turns are moving pretty quickly now because we've kind of reached this almost stalemated position where neither side really has the strength anymore to do anything, and I think this attack here will be the final throw of the dice for the Commonwealth. And after that it'll be down to whether, you know, artillery strikes or fighters get a lucky hit in, or whether they roll some reinforcements on the replacement table. So if a couple of good rolls were to come up, on the replacement table, and they could bring in a couple more, rebuild a couple of the battalions that they've lost, and add another 10 or 12 factors into one theatre. That also might make a difference, but as things stand, we're going to drift towards a conclusion, and at the moment it's a solid Vichy victory. So we're here on the 1st of July, and we're playing around there to the 12th of July, and so but I've got to keep pushing on and see whether the Vichy hold out, or whether the Commonwealth can make something happen in these last few days. Beginning of turn 17 in Reluctant Enemies, and the situation is perhaps a little bit more dynamic and intriguing than I'd envisaged. I thought it was kind of petering out, but actually this really significantly tough French but slow sort of French force, which had been scared of getting rumbled crossing this desert, made it up into these hills and has slowly been grinding forward, and there's suddenly a very, very threatening sort of group here. This French army is extremely dangerous. There's 35, 40 odd factors of French here, and they are just they're laying waste to whatever they can get to grips with, which so far has been about the Levant battalion and a 1st Moroccan battalion there that was stupid enough to get in their way. Everything else has retreated behind the river, and the Vichy threw forward this 213 as a sort of sacrificial unit just to act as a spotter to bring the Air Force in, which has just DG'd their stack. And the Vichy have won initiative this turn and thrown the Allies in again to keep that DG'd a bit longer, so the Allies have to take another turn, and then hopefully the Vichy are hoping that then they can do the same again and keep this French force disorganised. The moment they manage to get some traction with it when it's organised, they're going to be putting some severe pressure on this river line. It looks like it's big and tough, but you've got a 2-strength unit there. These units have got mainly artillery underneath them with a combat unit on top. It's only really that stack there with the armour on that's really strong in this area. The rest of it's quite weak, and 35, 40 factors of French piling up is giving them some problems. The French are going to run out of time, though. That's the other thing. We're in turn 17. The game goes turn 21. Damascus is up here. So this is actually looking like it could be quite an interesting finish over the next two or three turns to see which way this goes. Whether the Vichy Air Force can keep these guys locked down, or whether they get enough time and opportunity to come out and really get to grips with the defenders around Damascus. Perhaps the Commonwealth will slide over another fighter or two into this area, because their fighter force, which is currently sat on the coast over here, really isn't doing a great deal. The other thing, talking about this coastal area, that the Allies have done is they've shipped out all their artillery that was backing up over here. They had 3 artillery battalions in here which were really doing nothing, and they couldn't get supply to them almost, so they've shipped them back round into this area and they've now got a significant amount of artillery here, so they're just hoping to shell this sort of riverline defensive position and not just DG it but cause casualties. A DG isn't enough for them to attack. They've still only got 2 to 1 even if they're attacking when it's DG'd, and the Vichy have moved up more troops, so they probably need some to be causing casualties, but they'll try anyway. They've got if they can roll some high numbers with a high level of artillery, then they can cause casualties and maybe break through with a turn or so to go. They only have to get this hex, and that's one of their most important or more important objectives. So if they can take Damour or either or both hexes, or one or both hexes of Damascus, and suddenly they'd be on a win where they're currently on a significant loss. So still lots to play for here. Not winding down to the extent that I thought, and I think the Commonwealth could do some things. They've got some, they've got some troops here that they could slide back out if they wanted to. Just keep that locked down with one battalion and drift a couple more battalions of Brits and some Czechs round in this direction to help the French. That might work. And like I say, they could relocate their air force to somewhere providing a little bit more protection from air attacks. So lots to do still for the Commonwealth. They've still got a few ideas to try, mainly because these extremely tough French are starting to get to grips with the opponent.
Start of turn 18 then here in Reluctant Enemies, and all the action now really focusing over here at Damascus, where these French forces are trying to get to grips with the Vichy behind the river line and punch through into Damascus. They have a big heavy hitting army down here with some backup and some armour, and the defence, if they could get to grips with it, they could probably break through. However, the Vichy Air Force is coming in and just disorganising this stack with constant air attacks, and the Vichy are just throwing forward sort of sacrificial units into this rough terrain to act as spotters. So these are getting chewed up, but the army isn't, the French army here isn't making any progress towards Damascus, because another unit and they've got another one back there, there's stuff rubbish like this that they're just trying to throw forward to spot. So yeah, that's the situation, and the Vichy have won initiative this turn and put the Commonwealth in, so that these guys now have to act with their DG stack, and the Axis Vichy get the second part of the turn, and they can try and DG it again. There is air defence around on behalf of the Commonwealth, but they're just not winning the air combat in this region, and so the bombers are getting through and putting attacks in on the units that they need to force the issue. So it's the Commonwealth part of the turn now, and they're going to probably chew up that 235 cavalry unit, not make much ground, see if their huge artillery concentration over here, this entire stack here is artillery, and the one in front of it, 35 or 38 odd factors of artillery, see if that can cause any damage over here. If it does, then they may have a pop at attacking across this river line, even on low odds, because they're running out of time. But otherwise it'll be seeing if they can make any progress here, keep that army defended from air attack, and go into next turn with hoping to win the initiative and fight. Or alternatively, if they win the initiative and they're in this position, they'll put the Vichy in again first, so that the Vichy can't DG the stack again, and then go second in the turn and move up, and then lose the DG and hope to win the initiative in the following turn. But we're running out of time here for the Commonwealth to capture anything. So just 4 turns left now. We're on the 7th of July. Got the 8th, 10th and 12th to go, and the game is over.